I'm back with another Lightroom tutorial, and today I want to start a new series where we take a closer look at some of my digital film action Lightroom presets. And today I want to take a look at Muse, which is one of my newer presets that I've released. So I'm just going to get straight into editing so you have something to look at while I'm talking. But basically, this is a set of photos that Dan and I took while we were on an 8-hour layover in Tokyo. And it was super fun. We managed to get out of the airport and go and explore the city a little bit, which was great. So today I'm just editing these photos literally just with the Muse Lightroom preset. With my Lightroom presets, I aim to create one-click presets, so you don't need to do much editing. The only thing that is kind of uncontrollable and differs in every single photo is the white balance and the exposure. And I just want to show you how I would edit some of my photos with my presets to maybe give you some ideas on what you can do with yours. And right now I'm just going through clicking on the preset and just altering a few little things that differ between each photo. I just wanted to mention that the photos shot on this shoot were on the Sony a7S Mark II. And that also gives you a nice idea of what the preset looks like on different cameras, because all my before and after photos on my website are actually shot on my Canon 5D Mark III. And they're all shot on different lenses, so they look a little bit different, but I thought editing some Sony footage would be great to show you guys what it looks like. Alright, so just to explain what I'm doing here, this photo I'm editing right now, I needed to bring up the exposure a little bit, and then I can see that there is some vignetting on the edges of the image, which I don't like too much, so I'm just going to go through and bring up the vignetting to get rid of that. And because this was shot through a train window, it's got kind of a green tinge to it, so I'm bringing up the tint a little bit to make it slightly more pink. And I might bring the highlights down a little bit as well, just to balance out the image overall. And here's a little before and after. And this photo is when we made it to the Shibuya crossing. And we were so excited to come and visit this place. And when we got there, it was empty. There was like 3 people waiting to cross on the street, which we thought was quite funny. All the photos that we've ever seen of this crossing is just packed out, and when we went it was just empty. It was very weird. This morning in Tokyo was like quite an overcast day, so I'm just playing around with the temperature and the saturation of this photo to try and make it look a little bit more vibrant. It kind of looks a little bit plain, but I think that edits it out quite nicely. Might bring a little bit more pink in it. And we also managed to shoot some portraits while we were in Tokyo, and we managed to make it work because we had our 2 carry-on suitcases with us that had all our camera gear in it, and we also had 2 extra camera bags with us as well, so we had a lot of stuff that we were taking around while visiting Tokyo for a few hours. But we managed to make it work. Dan and I took turns taking portraits of each other, and yeah. So as you can see, compared to the first set of photos, these photos here are a little bit quicker to edit because there is less to do with them. We were in a controlled lighting environment, I guess you could say, because we were shooting portraits, so we decided where we wanted to stand. We edited the camera settings before we started shooting, and then all the photos that we take in this one spot are all the same. Unlike the photos here from the beginning of the day that were shot out of car windows and train windows, plane windows, while we were walking around, so it's a lot harder to control the lighting settings, so that's why these take quite a lot less editing to get them to look right. Another trick that I do is once I have a portrait edited, I just shift click on the next 2 that are in the same location and just sync everything. And there we go, it's like done. I'll just bring down the exposure a little bit because it's a bit too bright for my liking. And then there's this photo of Dan that I really like. I actually feel like there's too much ground in this photo. We were shooting on a 24mm lens. Oops. I like to keep the aspect ratio at 2:3. I don't like it when photos in a blog post are all cropped at different aspect ratios, so I make sure to keep it all consistent. But there we go, it looks a lot better. I might actually use a gradient to darken the ground a little bit because I feel like it's a bit distracting in this photo. Yeah, that's a lot better. And then we went up to, I think it was Starbucks actually. It had the best view of Shibuya Crossing. And this was taken on the Sony a7S Mark I, this particular photo. So the colors look a little bit different when I put the preset on. But we're just going to bring up the exposure and get rid of that vignetting because it's very prominent in this photo. And bring up the warmth a little bit because it's quite cool. Bring up the tint by a little bit and also the saturation. Perfect. And then with the cropping, I'm going to get rid of this little thing in the corner. I think it was part of the window. I need to lock that. There we go. And I'm going to straighten out the image so the crossing is perfectly straight and try and put the crossing in the middle of the photo, like that. Perfect. Okay, and then we shot some portraits in front of Shibuya Crossing, which was again interesting because one of us would go and stand by the crossing and whoever was taking the photo, in this case Dan, was standing with all our suitcases and our camera bags. And this photo I actually want to edit with a black and white preset, and I think I'm going to go for Ghosts because it is I guess it's more of like a film-like black and white. It's very low contrast but still has a lot of depth in like the shadows, and I love this black and white preset. I use it for pretty much everything. But I'm basically just going to bring up the exposure a tiny bit, and there's a before and after. Okay, and then when it was Dan's turn to get photos, the sun came out. So these I'm going to edit a tiny bit differently. I'm still going to apply Muse. And as you can see, there is a lot of like shadowy contrast here because it's backlit now. So I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit and bring up the shadows the whole way just to balance that out a little bit more. And I think that looks a lot nicer now than it did before. Then I'm going to get rid of that vignetting again. And I want to bring a graduated filter down here for the sky because I really like that detail in the clouds that you could see. Perfect. This next one I'll edit a little differently again because you can't see as much sky this time. I'm going to bring the exposure up and the shadows up as well. Maybe bring the white balance down a tiny bit. And bring up the vignetting. I really love this Muse preset because it's got kind of contrasting colors to it. So it's got this nice golden glowy highlight to it, and then in the shadows it's like a nice warmish blue. And I find that I use it a lot when I want my photos to look colorful or happy, or you know, just have like an overall warm kind of summery vibe to them. This one I feel like I'm going to bring the saturation up, and then the tint, and then the temperature down, and once again that vignetting here is bothering me, so I'm going to change that. And then we move on to shooting some street portraits, well, some street photos, so let's apply that. So this is quite dark, but we'll just bring up the exposure and the overall photo looks a lot better. This again has a lot of vignetting, which we'll get rid of. Then I'll bring down the highlights to bring some of this cloud detail back in. and bring up the saturation because this is such a colorful city. I feel like we need to show that in our editing. And I feel like it's a little warm as well, so I'm just bringing that down too. Sometimes when you're editing, it's all about tweaking little bits at a time, and sometimes you'll edit the white balance and then you'll need to edit the exposure. So I hover my mouse over the temperature, exposure, or whatever I want to edit, and I have my fingers over the up and down arrow keys on the keyboard. And so I hover over that and then just press up a little bit and then warm that up. Then bring the temperature down, highlights, exposure, shadows. And it's just like a really quick method that I like to use to edit. It also helps me, I guess, tweak parts of the photos really quickly as well. And we're up to the second last photo. This is the last one we shot in Tokyo. I don't even think Dan knows that I took this photo of him. This is Dan shooting this photo actually. So there you go. I was really surprised to see a Wendy's in Tokyo actually. I was quite surprised. I'm not entirely convinced on having this photo in color, so I'm going to try the ghost preset and see what that looks like instead. I think I actually prefer that a lot more. Okay, and then last but not least, we have our photo where we are flying away from Tokyo, heading over to, I think we're going to Munich in Germany. So this one, I want to fill in the shadows because that top part of the image in the sky was way too dark. And I'm going to bring down the highlights to get that detail back in the clouds. Bring up the exposure a little bit, bring up the clarity and some saturation as well. And oh, that just got really warm, so I'll bring down the temperature. And there we go, there's a before and after. So we'll just go through all the images one more time, but I hope you enjoyed seeing what my Muse Lightroom preset looks like on a set of photos in different lighting conditions. Again, like I mentioned before, my aim with all my Lightroom presets is to have them be one-click edits. So I just want to make a few of these videos for you guys where you can see me going through my process of editing in Lightroom, and you can see that my presets really are just one-click edits. And if there's any tutorials or videos that you'd like to see from me, please leave it in the comment section below because I'd love to make some things for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.